There's a lot of confusion out there about which immigrants are safe to travel within the United States and who should be really weary or afraid of contact with immigration officers. And I get a lot of questions from my clients who have an adjustment of status application pending, a green card application currently pending, oftentimes through marriage to a US citizen or some similar family petition. And they ask me, like recently I got a question, can I travel to the middle of the United States to attend my daughter's graduation? So basically, can I travel from the East Coast to Colorado in this scenario to visit my daughter's graduation? And this client of mine has an adjustment of status application pending. And my answer was, if you have contact with immigration officers on your way there, I don't know if you're trying to fly, but if you fly, there's a good chance, even domestic to domestic airport, there is a chance, a pretty decent chance, you could have some interaction with immigration officers. Although the chance is probably low if you're going purely domestic to domestic, there is a chance. And if you have an interaction with immigration officers, you should expect at the very least to be held for some period of time until they verify that you have an adjustment of status application pending. But they can do much more than just hold you for a couple hours. They could detain you and even begin removal proceedings. If you entered the US within the last 2 years, they can expeditiously try to remove you without allowing you to see an immigration judge, and that would just be a nightmare scenario. After having like 10 or 20 conversations just like this one, I began wondering, what rule should I tell people to abide by in the short term while we're trying to figure out exactly what the limits of the Trump administration's ICE policies are? And the rule I came up with is pretty much, if you are not currently a permanent resident or a US citizen, there are risks involved with traveling. I mean, as we've been seeing on the news, even permanent residents are not completely safe and immune from problems with immigration officers. In this video, I'm discussing domestic travel internally within the United States. Traveling internationally as a permanent resident carries some risks, although very minimal, and I would still tell 99% of permanent residents that they could probably safely travel internationally as long as there's no immigration fraud in their case, as long as they never lied or misrepresented anything, as long as there's no criminal history, and as long as your departure from the United States is pretty short. I mean, well under 6 months, ideally. I've even been getting questions from a lot of asylum seekers, and this is people who have affirmative asylum applications pending, which means they are not currently in removal proceedings. They entered the US, they applied for asylum with the asylum office, and that application's been pending for years, oftentimes, even up to 10 years in some scenarios. Are they safe? Can they travel domestically within the US? And generally the answer is probably, but I would be wary. If you have contact with a bad immigration officer, they have vast discretion. They can even detain you while your asylum application is pending. And there are some people with deferred action, whether you have a U visa pending or special immigrant juvenile status deferred action, or some other version of it like DACA, which is deferred action for childhood arrivals. By the way, TPS is kind of like deferred action also. Everyone who has deferred action pretty much has a promise from the government, whatever that's worth, saying, for now, we're not gonna deport you because you are a very low enforcement priority, which is why the government gave you deferred action. But even with deferred action, I would still be a little bit concerned about having an interaction with an ICE officer. Because first of all, deferred action can easily be rescinded on a case-by-case basis. If an immigration officer interacts with you and wants to detain you or begin your removal from the United States, it wouldn't be super hard for them to rescind your deferred action in some scenarios and begin to initiate your removal from the United States. With that said, I'm not super concerned about people who have deferred action because they are likely protected from removal, but I still wouldn't encourage traveling domestically in a situation where you're likely to interact with an immigration officer for a vacation. I would really limit your movement until it's absolutely necessary. But that's just me being overly cautious. I mean, you need to decide which risks you and your family are comfortable with. The truth of the matter is, we don't really know right now exactly how risky it is for people who have deferred action or asylum pending or ongoing removal proceedings to interact with ICE officers. We need more information before we can really analyze the risks in a way that can inform our future decisions. One thing seems to be pretty clear for the most part. If you're a US citizen or a permanent resident, traveling domestically within the United States should not be a problem. Again, there's some caveats. We saw what happened to the permanent resident who was detained by ICE at Columbia University, but that seems to be an outlier. There have been like 2 or 3 such instances that I've seen in the news, but there are millions of permanent residents. So those are really statistically insignificant outliers when it comes to deciding how you're gonna structure your behavior and your life moving forward in the United States. All right, guys, that brings us to the end of today's video. If you're interested in these topics or want to stay up to date on Trump's immigration policies, be sure to subscribe. If you personally need any assistance with family-based immigration or naturalization, you could find my personal contact info in the video description below. I would love to meet with you, talk to you during a consultation, and see if I can assist you. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time for another video.